June 22, 1941, Operation Barbarossa. As German tanks crossed the border, Soviet pilots scrambled to meet the Luftwaffe. They've studied their recognition manuals for months. They know the enemy, Messerschmitt Bf 109E. Emil, top speed 5 and 60 kilometers per hour. Armament, 2 machine guns, 2 cannons. They're ready, but today something's wrong. The Germans are flying something different, something that shouldn't exist. Within minutes, the first Soviet aircraft is falling, shot down by something that shouldn't exist. Across the front, the story repeats. Soviet pilots are fighting something their manuals never mentioned. Something faster, something deadly. By sunset on the first day, Soviet aviation has lost over 1,200 aircraft, most on the ground. But those who fought in the air bring back disturbing reports. It looked like a 109, but faster. Much faster, rounded wingtips instead of square. Larger spinner. Soviet intelligence officers flip through aircraft recognition manuals, searching for answers. They stop on one page, the Heinkel 113, a prototype fighter built in limited numbers, never entered mass production, but included in Soviet intelligence manuals just in case. The rounded wings match. The large spinner matches. It has to be the Heinkel. Within 48 hours, Heinkel 113 reports flood Soviet headquarters from Leningrad to Odessa. Lieutenant Dmitry Petrov's wingman doesn't make it back. His last radio call, Heinkel on my tail, but something doesn't add up. At Soviet Aviation Intelligence Headquarters, officers examine mounting stacks of reports. Over 300 Heinkel 113 sightings in 3 days. The Germans only built 12 prototypes, perhaps 20 aircraft total. Then what are the pilots seeing? The ghost fighter is somehow everywhere at once, and it's killing Soviet pilots who think they know what they're fighting. Pilots judge closure rates based on Emil specifications. They calculate turning circles based on what their manuals tell them. But the enemy is 40 kilometers per hour faster than expected. Every calculation is wrong. Every day, more pilots die, fighting an enemy they don't understand. The ghost is winning. After 1 week, Petrov's squadron has lost 9 pilots, all shot down by what they reported as Heinkel 113s. But what are they really fighting? 3 months into the war, Soviet intelligence is desperate for answers. The mysterious Heinkel 113 continues appearing in combat reports across a 2,000-kilometer front. Before the war, Soviet spies photographed a Heinkel 113 prototype at a German airshow. They noted its features: rounded wingtips, large propeller spinner, streamlined cowling. The profile matches. Everything the pilots describe fits the Heinkel. But there's a problem, one that keeps gnawing at Soviet analysts. According to German pre-war data, the Heinkel 113's maximum speed is 570 kilometers per hour. Soviet pilots consistently report 600, even 620 kilometers per hour. Either every pilot is overestimating speed by 50 kilometers per hour, or Germany is somehow mass-producing an aircraft that never left the prototype stage. The math is impossible. German industry couldn't have built hundreds of Heinkels without Soviet intelligence knowing. But if it's not a Heinkel, what is it? At the front, pilots try to adapt. If they're fighting Heinkels, they need to understand the enemy's capabilities. The Heinkel turns tighter than the Emil. We can't outturn it in horizontal, but we can outdive it. The specs say the specs are wrong. I tried that. He followed me through a 6,000-meter dive and was still accelerating. Every day brings new contradictions. The Heinkel climbs faster than specifications. It dives better. It accelerates more quickly. Nothing matches. German ace Werner Mulders, flying with Jagdgeschwader 51, racks up victories against Soviet fighters. His name appears in German propaganda broadcasts. In Soviet records, Mulders flies a Heinkel 113. In reality, he flies something quite different. Something Soviet intelligence still hasn't recognized. By November 1941, the ghost fighter has contributed to the destruction of thousands of Soviet aircraft. But the real killer isn't the aircraft itself. It's the misidentification. Pilots expecting one performance envelope face another. They misjudge. They miscalculate. They die. Petrov's squadron has lost 2 more pilots in November. 16 aircraft total since June. All to the Ghost. We are shooting at shadows. They tell us we fight Heinkels, but these aircraft perform like nothing in our manuals. How many more of us must die before someone tells us the truth? The answer is coming, but from an unlikely source. December 14th, 1941. A damaged German fighter crash lands behind Soviet lines, 30 kilometers from Moscow. The pilot escapes into the forest, but the aircraft remains largely intact. Captain Andrei Volkov's orders are clear. Identify the aircraft type. If this is truly a Heinkel 113, Soviet command needs to understand how Germany is deploying them in such numbers. Volkov circles the aircraft slowly. He wipes snow from the fuselage, looking for markings. His hand stops. Messerschmitt Werknummer, not a Heinkel, a Messerschmitt, but not the Bf-19E Emil that Soviet pilots trained to fight. The rounded wingtips, the larger spinner, the cleaner aerodynamic profile. Every detail that made pilots think Heinkel was actually Messerschmitt. A new variant, more advanced, faster, one that Soviet intelligence never knew existed. Volkov examines the wing roots where the Emil had struts. This aircraft has none. For 6 months, Soviet pilots had been fighting an enemy they couldn't recognize. The Ghost had a name, Messerschmitt Bf-109F, Friedrich. To understand the Ghost, we must go back to when Soviet intelligence made its fatal assumption, July 1940. While Britain fights for survival, German engineers are already improving their premier fighter, the Bf-109F, Friedrich. A comprehensive redesign of the proven Emil. Better aerodynamics, more powerful engine, cleaner lines. The changes seem subtle. Rounded wingtips instead of straight edges, reducing drag. Larger propeller spinner for better cooling. Engine cowling redesigned. Horizontal stabilizer struts removed for cleaner airflow. But subtle changes create dramatic results. The Friedrich's Daimler-Benz engine produces 1,200 horsepower, 200 more than the Emil. Maximum speed, 615 kilometers per hour, 55 kilometers per hour faster than the Emil, 45 faster than the Heinkel prototype. By June 1941, nearly 2/3 of German fighter squadrons on the Eastern Front fly Friedrichs, not Emils. Hundreds of Friedrichs, right from the first day. The Ghost wasn't rare, it was everywhere, but Soviet intelligence never knew. In 1940, they purchased Emil models for study. Their manuals reflected the Emil's capabilities. Comprehensive, accurate, thorough, these manuals reached every Soviet squadron. Every pilot memorized them. The intelligence was perfect for an aircraft that Germany had already replaced. When Barbarossa began, Soviet pilots expected Emils. They faced Friedrichs, and when the Friedrichs' rounded wings and large spinner didn't match their Messerschmitt pages, they turned to the only thing that did match, the Heinkel 113. A ghost in the manual became a ghost in the sky. In air combat, recognition isn't academic, it's survival. When pilots misidentify the enemy, they misjudge speed, turning radius, climb rate. Every calculation becomes wrong. A pilot expecting 560 kilometers per hour leads his shot for that speed. But the enemy is traveling 615. The bullets pass harmlessly behind. A pilot dives to escape, knowing the Emil can't follow past certain speeds. But the Friedrich can, and does. The Friedrich was a fine aircraft. But Soviet pilots weren't defeated by German engineering. They were defeated by their own intelligence failure. January 1942, the truth spreads through Soviet aviation. Emergency briefings at every level, updated manuals rush to the front. For the first time, Soviet pilots learn what they've been fighting. This aircraft you've been reporting as Heinkel 113 is the Messerschmitt Bf-109F model, designation Friedrich, 6 months. We fought them for 6 months without knowing. Maximum speed, 615 kilometers per hour. Now they know. Now they can plan. Now they can survive. Armed with accurate intelligence, Soviet pilots adapt their tactics. Avoid the Friedrich's strengths. Exploit its weaknesses. They learn the Friedrich turns wider than Soviet fighters. They can use that. They learn the Friedrich's climb rate, while impressive, can be matched at certain altitudes. They can use that too. Most importantly, they learn its speed. Now, when a pilot leads a shot, his calculations are correct. Soviet aviation losses decline, not because the Friedrich became less dangerous, but because Soviet pilots finally knew what they were fighting. For Petrov's squadron, the knowledge comes too late. 9 pilots lost in 6 months of confusion. Only 3 originals remain, but those who survive now fight with knowledge. The ghost has been named, and in naming it, they've taken away its power. The numbers tell the story. From June 22 to December 31st, 1941, Soviet aviation recorded over 21,000 aircraft lost to all causes. Combat, accidents, destruction on the ground. 18% of combat losses were attributed to unknown or misidentified aircraft types. Thousands of aircraft, thousands of pilots. Not all of them fell to Friedrichs, but many did. And they died fighting an enemy their own intelligence couldn't name. We trusted our training. We trusted our manuals. They told us the enemy's capabilities, and we believed them. How could we know the manuals were already obsolete? Among the names on Soviet memorial walls, Senior Lieutenant Viktor Polyakov, shot down June 24th, 1941. Last radio call, engaged with Heinkel fighters. Junior Lieutenant Alexei Komarov, shot down July 12th, 1941. Attempting to outrun what his formation leader identified as a Heinkel 113, Captain Ivan Morozov, killed August 3rd, 1941, after his misjudged deflection shot against a Heinkel allowed it to reverse position. How many others fell to the same ghost? We'll never know. The misidentification was so complete that even the loss records can't tell us. German records show which squadrons flew Friedrichs. Soviet records show Heinkel 113 losses. Matching them is nearly impossible. What we do know is this: intelligence failure killed Soviet pilots as surely as German bullets. Wrong information, wrong assumptions, wrong conclusions, and young men died because no one told them the truth. Today, the Messerschmitt Bf 109F is recognized as one of the finest fighters of its era. Museum plaques list its specifications accurately. 615 kilometers per hour, 1,200 horsepower. Introduced in 1941, the Heinkel 113 sits nearby. A footnote, an interesting prototype. Never a combat aircraft, the Ghost Fighter taught modern militaries a lesson written in blood. Intelligence must be current. Recognition must be accurate. Assumptions can kill. Modern pilots rely on electronic identification systems, satellite intelligence, real-time updates, because we learned finally that fighting an enemy you can't properly identify is fighting blind. But in 1941, there were no satellites, no instant updates, just pilots, manuals, and the enemy they thought they knew. The Bf 109F, Friedrich, was never a wonder weapon. It was simply good German engineering. But for 6 months in 1941, it might as well have been invisible, because the most dangerous enemy isn't the one you fear, it's the one you fail to recognize.